So we have a Whirlpool stove. If you turn them on, this one is working, that's working, that working, but this one is not working. So we're going to identify or to diagnose the stove when one of the elements is not working. So in a nutshell, if the element is not working, it's either going to be the infinite switch or the element itself. So we're going to determine which one of these is defective. So the first thing you want to do is, since this will be in the customer's home, we're going to lift the top so we can see what it looks like. Safety first, we're going to unplug the unit. We're going to raise the top by taking these two screws off. There's two screws on each side. Once we do that, we can pick up the top, and for the purpose of the video, we're going to remove the top. So on this model, the elements are sitting like this. On some models, they'll be on the element itself. So this one is not working. So what we're going to do is, first, look at all these elements. You see, this one has two blue wires. This one has an orange and a violet, two yellows, and this one has a violet and brown. So those are the elements. These are wires that are coming from the switches. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make a resistance check for the element. So we have our trusted meter right here. I'm going to zero my meter first. So typically, you guys will use a schematic. So I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this with a schematic. So we have these wires are coming from the switch. So the switch is going to send the current through here. So if you check between this point and this point, you should get the resistance off the element with the limiter. So I'm going to disconnect one side, which you should do when you make a resistance check. And these are safety terminals. So you have to depress this and remove it because it's locked in place so the wire will not slip off. So we check this element, we should get somewhere between 10 ohms and 20 ohms. On this one we got 45. That's still a good reading. So the element itself is good. But if the element was defective, then we'll have to replace it. To replace this element is pretty simple. You just remove both wires, remove the clips, and we'll have our element. Now, what I do is, when I'm putting a new one in, I look at these numbers and I put the clips at this number so that way we'll put it in correctly. Also, if you look at the back of the limiter, you'll see actual letters. You'll see a 1B, a 2B, 1A, a 2A. Those are the two contacts for your thermal limiter. So this is your thermal limiter. In most ranges, it does two things. You have the 182A is a safety. It opens at about 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. So if that's open, the element itself will not work. Then you also have a 1B to 2B, which is normally open, and this closes on heat rise. So when the element comes on, it will close and it will turn on the hot surface indicator light. So that's the way this one is working. So we're going to put this element back in place. And again, want to make sure it's sitting properly. Put the wires back on, that way we won't make a spark. So here, the limiter and the element is good. So we're going to go to the back and show you how to check the infinite switch. We're going to have access to the infinite switch, so we're going to remove the back panel. It's typically Phillips screwdriver, Phillips screws, so we can remove all the screws. when you guys are removing the screws, make sure you don't remove like this screw, because this one keeps the body in place so it won't fall apart. So I'll put this one back in, because this one is not meant to be removed. I'm taking it back up. So once you remove the back, you'll see all the Infinite switches. So we have these two blue switches. These are dual elements, so they control more than one. It's a dual element that has different settings. So the best way to understand this without a schematic is we have 5 wires going to the Infinite switch. And we have these 2 yellow wires. These are going to the element. So these are labeled H1 and H2. Then you have your red wire going in, which is typically coming from the source. That's your L2. And you have the black wire. That's your L1. So again, without a schematic, it's very easy to identify these terminals. So we have the H1, H2, L1, L2. Then we have a violet wire. This violet wire is connected from the L1, which is the black, to the violet, and that one turns on your burner indicator light. So as soon as you turn the switch on, it tells you that the burner is on. So this is the Infinite switch that we're going to check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect one side, because you have to isolate when you make a check. So let me grab the meter. So the switch is in the off position at this point. So I'm going to check between L1, so I can leave my meter right there. And we're going to go to H1, and H1 is going to be over here. And we have infinite resistance, which it should be. So we're going to turn the switch on, and we got 0. So it means that part of the switch is good. So now we're going to turn the switch. We're going to go from H2 to L2, which is from this one to this one. We're going to turn the switch on. So right now the switch is in the off position. It's in the on position. And we have infinite resistance. So the reason why the element is not working is because we have a bad infinite switch. So we're going to show you guys how to replace this infinite switch. It's very simple. We're going to disconnect the wire. We're going to remove these 2 screws. Be very careful. These are special threads and size for infinite switch, so we do not want to lose them. I'm going to use a drill a little bit faster. So we're simply going to remove these 2 screws. And here we have the infinite switch. We're going to go close up on the infinite switch so you can hopefully see the markings, the L1, H1, L2, H2, and the P terminals. All right, so we got a brand new infinite switch that we're going to install. So again, we're going to put the screws in. Have a little bit of patience, take some time. Grab a screwdriver. Let's just get this one in first. This one is in. That one is in. So we're going to put the knob back on. And these are pretty dummy proof. Some of them will have individual wiring. So you can only put this one way. So let's put this one in first. Let's put this one in second. And we're going to verify to make sure this element is working now. Okay, so we have the infinite switch in. Verify to make sure all the wires are still connected. So let's verify the operation. And now we have an element that's working. Another way to check to verify if it's not working, or you want to see if it's the infinite switch or the element, is you can carefully make a voltage check. So to make a voltage check, what we'll do is we'll set our meter to voltage. And when you check between this wire, the blue, the blue with the black stripe and the blue, you should get 240 volts when you turn the switch on. So if the switch was defective, you'll get 0, but in this case we got 200 and we should get 240 volts. Oh, let's go a little bit higher. I see what's going on. All right, so we get 240 volts. So since this switch also regulates the temperature, I was checking it on the lowest setting, so it was cycling on and off. Okay, which brings me to my next point. If a customer says that when they put the element on low, but the burner stays on high, 100% of the time, the infinite switch is defective. So in this situation, this switch is actually working correctly, because on the low setting, it's cycling on and off very fast. But the higher you go, the longer it stays on. All right, so let's wrap this up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna unplug the stove. We're gonna put the top back on, and then we put the back on. So to put the top on, you have to be very careful. You wanna make sure you catch it in the hinges. So we wanna make sure we go in the back here and we catch it. It's not that difficult. Make sure it's even. I like to check both sides to make sure it's sitting properly. You don't want any recalls. And once we got that, we'll put the screws back in. And then we'll put the back panel on, and that wraps it up.